Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you, George?
Pretty good. Nice to meet you. I've seen you lurking around the Aries-vcx channel recently. That's good to see.
Yeah, no, I'm looking to try and get much more involved in the project. And I'm glad we've been able to adjust the timing on these calls because it previously was like, so this is right in the middle of the night for me, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Washington, so Western US.
I see. I
What about
see.
you?
Yeah. I'm in Australia, in Queensland. So
Nice.
it's 1 p.m. for me right now.
That's pretty chill.
Yeah, so I mean, going forward, we could even consider maybe moving it earlier, so you don't have to get on it, what, 8 p.m.
Yeah, I think that could be I think that could be a good idea, especially even if we think about trying to get additional people involved, like from the East Coast, where it's like, it's up at 11 p.m. now for them over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think this is at least a good start of being able to get more US times in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, I'm not sure if Patrick's joining or not. Yeah, have you heard from him at all?
I haven't heard from it at all. So
Okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll give you an introduction on myself. Then I'd like to hear more about you.
yeah.
But yeah, so I work for a company called Anonymy Labs. We have offices in Australia and in the US as well. And I work mainly on like the mobile side of our decentralized identity strategy.
Hmm.
And so Aries VCX is a fairly important component of that stack. Being a sort of raw toolbox full of Aries related utilities and lower level Aries stuff. Yeah, and also, another benefit that we see is that it offers the ability to keep the mobile stuff native, as opposed to something like Aries Framework JavaScript or Credo now. That's all in the React Native world. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, the native part of Rust being able to compile for pure Android and pure iOS is a cool benefit.
Yeah, so
Um,
especially if you want to do like SDKs or anything like that, where you need to be able to support just Android or just iOS, React Native doesn't cut it for you in that case.
exactly. Yep. Yep. No, you're all over it. And yeah, I've been involved in areas of VCX for a bit over a year, I think. Um, yeah, sort of it was Patrick and a few others from ABSA a year or so ago, and then it's grown and shrunk and grown.
Yep,
Um,
as projects do.
yeah. Um, and yeah, so yeah, how about you?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is a great introduction. I have been involved in the SSI Aries space for just about 4 years at this point. I started out at in DCO doing uh well, really jumped into on the mobile side of things, worked a lot on AFJ and Credo and the Bifold project, started that and whatnot. Uh Recently left in DCO and have now I'm doing some contracting for a company called Instant. And so the direction where we're trying to go with this, doing Aries VCX makes a lot of sense for us to be able to support all the various different platforms and whatnot. So trying to get involved here. My Rust experience is low, but trying to pick up on that quickly here. So I will admit that I am a newbie on that front, but I have a lot of experience from the Aries perspective. So mixed bag.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, 4 years. That's a rare long time to hear. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to see the growth and development of everything. So yeah. Um
Awesome. So yeah, am I right in saying that your interest in Aries VCX is sort of from the mobile perspective?
that is the primary where Instant is interested in is primarily the mobile perspective at the moment. I think
Mhm.
we possibly have interest in trying to do browser in the future, but that's kind of a ways off. I
Mhm.
also, though, think that developing the server side pieces for testing purposes can be really nice for end-to-end testing of like, yeah, let's have our own mediator so that we can test all within the same repo,
Mhm.
that can be really nice as well. But
Yeah.
yes, you're
Yeah.
correct. Mobile is the biggest thing for us at the moment.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And yeah, it's interesting. I think I don't want to speak for Patrick, but I think Absa's main interest previously was a lot of server side stuff, acting as an issuer,
Yep.
things like that. Um, so yeah, like historically, I was sort of the main mobile consumer. Um, so I'd inject my opinions here and there whenever it was mobile related.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, I see as well you have a one of those maintainer flags on the Hyperledger Discord. Is that for the React Native bifold project or something in that
Yeah,
regard?
I was maintaining AFJ slash Credo. I dropped off that when I left in DCO, as well as I was maintaining bifold as well. Those two kind of went hand in hand.
Mhm.
Um, so looking to work towards being able to maintain Aries-vcx, as well as continuing to work on like the Aries RFCs and whatnot. Um,
Mhm.
so in a little bit of a transition, but yeah, those were the two projects I was maintaining was the Aries-vcx or AFJ slash Credo and the Bifold project.
Yeah, awesome. That's very cool. And yeah, yeah, great to hear that you're keen on maintaining. I'm sure you're aware, but Aries VCX is sort of in a bit of a limbo with maintainership currently, with ABSA exiting the game.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I think from my understanding, and again, I wish Patrick was here to discuss a little more. Maybe we should have another meeting later between
Yeah.
us and Patrick. But yeah, I think Patrick's intention is to sort of slow down on his participation from a maintainer perspective.
Yep.
Um, and so that leaves a fair bit of responsibility to be handled. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, something I need to figure out as well is what my level of involvement will be. I've done this mostly sort of in my own personal time,
Mm,
just out of passion for the project mostly. But I think now it'll become a more involved thing for me, but I'm not sure to what degree, and that's my issue to figure out. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so
I
it sounds like you were interested in helping maintain. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So when it comes to maintaining of the repo and CI/CD and managing community meetings, I'm happy to help with that. I think biggest thing I'll say is I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So if you're like, hey, this is the thing that needs some attention, you can poke me and point me in a direction, and I can try and put some effort towards it. Or tell me, that's something that Patrick manages or that I'm managing, and I'll back off.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, for sure. Yeah, that's a great relief to hear. Obviously you have lots of experience with maintaining in areas, so you sound like a perfect person for this.
Hopefully, hopefully. So yeah, that
Um,
was one of the first things is I thought I would try and at least keep the regular calls going to try and
mhm,
give a time to be able to address issues or at least keep some momentum, even if things slow down a little bit.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think you're right. Keeping these meetings going and showing presence of the project is important, not to let it rot. Even if there's not much code contribution going on right now, keeping it
Yep.
active and alive is probably important.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
From the code contribution perspective, what I'm obviously coming up to speed on Rust, and so that is definitely a challenge. But I think that uh, I'm working on putting together a sample agent that I hope can kind of morph or at least inform some of the decisions of how to develop the uh, framework around Aries-vcx to increase the usability of the project, if that makes sense. Because I've talked a little bit with Patrick about it, and so and like is I think the development of a framework around what's there now would help from the usability perspective.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, for sure. You might have seen it in yeah the previous meetings agendas, but there's been that diagram that Patrick's been floating, and it's sort of this you know DIDCOM RS framework or something like that. Um, yeah, so is that the direction you'd like to see Aries VCX go in, sort of developing that framework out?
Yeah, I Uh, yes. And my thought process is right now I'm trying to use what's already there to figure out, oh, is this me that does this proposed architecture, are there gaps that are missing here that need to be addressed? Like I think one of the biggest gaps from the mobile perspective right now, uh, is the mediation coordination, in particular when it comes to WebSockets and how to do live
Mm,
mode there because from a user experience perspective, being able to receive messages in real time, I feel like is uh, from my perspective is critical. So that's one of the things that I've first identified of like, that is a working on the transport management and having that be pluggable, extendable, configurable, that kind of thing, I think is one of the things that I would definitely start with. But to answer your
yeah,
actual question, yes, this is the general gist of what I was thinking as well.
yeah, yeah, awesome. And if you know the answer, what did AFJ do in terms of transport? Did they have like WebSockets hooked up to mediator services, or how did it work?
Yeah, from the AFJ perspective, we had you could register inbound and outbound transports,
Mm,
and uh, there was HTTP and WebSockets. It was also constructed in a manner in which it was mostly abstracted away. So, for instance, like I think someone's actually starting to work on this now of wanting to be able to do like Bluetooth or BLE as a transport method, but HTTP and WebSockets is the primary thing there. Um, and then there was a module inside of the project that would handle the communication with the mediator.
mm,
Um, So to a certain extent, that could be taken out and black box, but it's kind of integral to sending of messages because you have to do routing, the
mm.
routing keys for all the encryption and stuff. So it gets a little hairy to fully abstract it potentially, but yeah. So there, HTTP WebSockets as inbound or outbound transports.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Good to know. Yeah, okay. Well, it's great that you have experience in that domain. It could sort of be reflected a bit into this potential framework for Aries VCX, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, from the code perspective, like there was two questions that I had prepped for. Like I wasn't sure who was going to be here today and whatnot, but like two of the questions that I kind of had was, um, what do you see as the current, like, what's the status of the usage of the NDSK in Aries VCX? And that, like, are people using that, or can we deprecate and remove it? In that, can we just use ASCAR and NDVDR and non-creds today, or are we relying, or are implementations relying on NDSDK? If you know the answer.
Um, yeah, so it's a bit weird because we don't truly know who our consumers are, other than, myself, Patrick, and and potentially you. Um, and so yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I'm certainly not using Indie SDK. Uh, yeah, I think it was good to move on from that, as many other projects in the Aries space did. Um, yeah, might need to ask Patrick this. I feel like he was pretty keen on stripping it out, and getting rid of that libVDR stuff that was in Aries-vcx. Um, yeah, can you see the state of that at all? Like, is there still the indie
There's
VDR? Oh, sorry, not indie VDR, but I forgot the
NDSDK.
word. Yeah, yeah,
There is in the Aries VCX Anoncreds, there is Anoncreds and CredX Anoncreds, and I
yes.
believe the same thing for uh, maybe Ledger. I'm not as sure on that one. And definitely for Watt, there's ASCAR and then Indy. So
Yeah.
at least it's good to hear that you and Patrick are on board with stripping it out. I feel
Mhm.
like as long as I wonder if we could mark it as deprecated in release, or just strip it out and say if you want to use it, you can use it in this version and then do a migration or something. Where my thought is, what I want to do is essentially give consumers enough time to say, "Oh, hey, no, we're using that. Don't strip that out," or provide some kind of migration. But what I want to do is I want to get rid of it. So I'm asking just so I can build up context of the project, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, something interesting I just spotted. If you go back to the repo
Yeah, yeah.
and go into, there's a crate called Aries VCX Wallet. Yeah, and then go to the cargo tunnel of that. And see how there's like the VDR tools wallet, um,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and then that uses libVDR tools. And are you familiar with libVDR tools?
Not significantly. If I recall correctly, this is something that would not be, I don't know that we would need this now, because I believe this was could use in parallel to the NDSDK. I could be wrong on that though. I'm not as familiar with the VDR tools.
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, my understanding of the VDR tools, and I've never consumed it directly, but it seems to be a fork of Indie SDK. So from my
Yep,
perspective, for all intents and purposes, it is Indie SDK.
yep.
But yeah, it seems like something interesting is that maybe it doesn't actually exist anymore, but see the libVDR tools path is pointing somewhere. Oh no, sorry, yeah, it's still under there. So the whole libVDR tools directory, the whole crate is still buried inside here, the whole fork of Indie SDK. So I think ideally we could get rid of that.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
worth
It's in.
noting, yeah, sorry, if you go Aries-vcx/Aries/MISC/legacy.
I have way too much open here to be navigating. Ah, yeah, it was down here. So it's all literally down in legacy. Yeah, so this is literally a fork of the indie SDK.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And so I think the guys have set up like migration steps for converting like libVDR tools or indie wallets, the data in there into ASCAR wallet data. And you can compile out the indie stuff by not enabling certain flags. Like if you don't have that VDR tools underscore wallet feature turned on, then I think the indie SDK is not compiled at all and it's not included in the project.
Mm,
Uh, so there's definitely movement away from there. But maybe a bigger question is whether we just delete it entirely.
yeah. I Part of what I lean towards is trying to um I think a helpful exercise is to simplify, especially where I'm like, I know that this is not a thing that we want to move. We don't really want to keep supporting this unless there's
Mm,
strong reason to do so, In its area, we can remove code, help simplify the code base, for instance. That can be a helpful process to go through occasionally.
yeah, 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 definitely.
Cool. Um,
Just
yeah.
on the framework stuff, you might have seen it, but there was a little bit of discussion in the Aries VCX Discord from someone
Oh,
called
yeah, yeah.
Z ZZ Oka Zoka, and they were essentially, I believe they're consuming the Aries VCX agent crate, which I think some people interpret that crate as being the framework because
Yep.
it sort of holds protocol states for you
Yep.
and holds it in memory. So it gives you a feel that's similar to your AFJs and your Akapai agents.
Yep.
But that agent crate, the Aries V6 agent crate is really meant to be this sort of tool that we can use for testing the AATH, the Aries test harness.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I guess I'm pointing out that clearly there are people who want this framework, and maybe Zoka was a little disappointed when I said that it's not made for production currently.
Yeah. Yeah. No, uh I think you pointed that out is really wise. I Does it mention that at all in the is there a
Yeah, that README says it's built for testing
okay.
that back
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Maybe that's not obvious enough. Hmm.
Maybe we can get slightly more what might hmm, what I don't want to do is but we could adjust potentially the readme here and maybe even the base readme to indicate that what we're trying to do with the framework of like, hey, we realize that in order to use this well, we need a framework and we're working on it. That might be helpful from people just jumping in and of like not getting confused of like, oh, I'm going to try and go use this agent that looks like the thing I need, you know?
Yeah,
Because I think
yeah,
you summed it up really well in your comment in Discord to him. I think of like, this is for the AATH, not don't use this for your purpose.
yeah, yeah. And maybe I don't know if you've explored this area of Rust much, but when you see a function that's full of dot unwraps, it's a pretty huge red flag, and to me it indicates that it's not production or it's only for testing. And that
Right.
creates
Well,
full
because
of them.
it's essentially you're not, as I understand it, you're not doing proper error handling there. It's really good for prototyping, but and or not production stuff. because you're not actually setting up the error handling that is ideal there. Is that a good summary of why you would not want to do the unwraps?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Cool.
unwrapping will panic your code, and you can technically catch panics in Rust, but you're not really meant to.
Cool. Um, so I can make a PR to update the README with something, and you can give me any feedback on that if that would be helpful.
Yeah, 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 I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be good. I think you and I should probably try set up a meeting with Patrick to talk about sorting out the maintainership uh, issues. That'd be good to try sort out between us.
Yeah, yeah. We should. I'll send a message, a group message between you and Patrick, so that we can set up a time.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good. Really
Awesome.
good. Just a question as well. So you're interested in the framework idea. Um, are you interested in being a Rust consumer of this potential framework, or are you looking for like mobile wrapper consumer?
Hmm. I think that supporting I think it's important to be able to support the Rust. Like, that's the primary consumer. However, I don't think there's a as high of a demand to develop Rust agents at the moment. So, like, I think it's important to support that. My primary need is to support mobile-facing functions. So, part of the thing that we're going to be working on is more in-depth building out of the Unify wrapper process
Mhm.
to expose that to Android and iOS. And I think
Cool.
that looks like um, either further automating and or fleshing that out based off of what we do with the framework and whatnot. Because like I think the bones of that is already there with Android. So I think it's just improving on what's there. But from a consumer perspective, we need to be able to do Android and iOS, potentially React Native. I have to figure that one out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
does
you're
that answer your
right.
question?
Yes, yeah, the current Unify is just for Android, and it's very much the bones, and there's missing parts, like not good error handling, and whole suite of APIs are missing. And also the wrapper's built on top of the sort of core Aries-vcx functions and methods, rather than what we might want, which is for it to be built on top of the framework. Um, since that's the easier, nicer thing to consume. Um,
Agreed, agreed.
yeah, and there's no CI for it either, the Unify stuff. It'd be nice to have a CI process, and you can click a button, make a tag, and it'll
Yep.
release new Android AAR and iOS framework and all that stuff. Are you familiar with the Matrix SDK or the Matrix protocol?
I don't. It's not ringing bells.
Yeah, Matrix, it's like this messaging protocol, end-to-end encrypted messaging protocol. Um, and I'm not sure if it's a product from Mozilla or not, but it's all open source. And in my eyes, they're very much the pioneers of Unify consumption at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, so they've built out this like Matrix Rust SDK, and it's pure Rust, but then they have this cool CI for compiling it with Unify into iOS and Android packages, and then apps that are being used in the wild that actually consume that Unify package. So, if you're interested in the Unify area, I very much recommend looking into what Matrix is doing. You might find that interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good pointer. Thank you.
You know,
I
no,
yeah,
good.
I would love to build up the CI so we can have automated releases and Also, for instance, like getting Rust crates on like crates.io actually would be cool. Probably a lower priority, but part of me is like, that's cool to actually get it there, you know?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, something that Patrick wanted, and it's the second bullet point on that vision for future list. Second to the framework, which we've been talking about the whole time, is yeah, getting some of those crates as the standard de facto crate for people who want to do did stuff and did documents.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and part of that, of course, is releasing the crate and doing some good CI/CD for it. So yeah, definitely important.
Sweet. Um, yeah. I guess the other thing that I had come up with from a discussion standpoint was I don't know if I'll get to this anytime soon. I don't know, but it's come up in the Aries working group discussions of the did rotate protocol implementation, and one of the reasons I might try and implement it is that it's I don't think too complicated of a protocol to implement, and it might help get me more familiarized with the project. Um, do you think that there's things that I should be aware of in terms of like if I want to switch between DIDs and whatnot? Is there uh, things I should be aware of when it comes to how the DIDs and keys are handled within the project? Or it's a little bit of a weird question. Figure it out, throw it out there.
Yeah, is I'm not actually too familiar with the did rotate. Is that an Aries RFC?
Yeah, it's a newer one.
Yeah, would you mind pulling
It's
it up?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that doesn't point to the news site. There's a news site that makes it easier to read things. I'll just do it manually. There's a new deployed site that is a little prettier to look at than this, but
Uh,
uh, so did rotate. I'll throw that in the chat. The primary purpose here is to be able to say this is something that's baked into DIDCOM v2 by default as part of
mm,
the spec. So this is only
yep.
really a DIDCOM v1 thing. And essentially it says when you send a message to the other party that says, hey, I want to use a different did in our relationship. Uh, can you now use this did when you're communicating with me? Uh, this allows you to, for instance, do things such as uh, change your dids and keys. It allows you to change did formats. That's the big primary motivator here is that we have unqualified dids that need to
Mm,
rotate to like peer dids, for instance. One that we were talking about just today was like, oh, if I want to switch which mediator I'm using, uh, I need to be able to rotate my did, say, hey, my mediators, the routing keys that are used in your did doc, those have
mm.
changed, so you have to rotate your did essentially. Um, so this is a way to do connection maintenance, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because I know about it in did come V2. I didn't realize they've sort of put it into V1 as well. That's good. Um,
Yeah, no, like it just got accepted like last-ish month. I guess it's already it's already the fifth month, so 2 months ago or whatever. So it's been
yeah,
implemented in Akapai and Credo at this point. Um, so I'm trying to uh, keep up with keep up with the those implementations and whatnot. So
yeah, yeah. So what I think the steps for someone implementing this in Aries VCX to do would be is there's a messaging crate in Aries VCX which has all the DIDCOM v1 Aries message structures. that we support.
Yep.
So obviously for all the different Aries protocols, they're all in there. And there's sort of a standard pattern. You'll sort of begin to gauge it once you look through some of the other Aries protocols, but there's a pattern for how to add in a new message or new message types to this crate. So I think you'd need to add in the new types for this did rotate family. Looks like there was the initial one and the ACK and a problem report. Um, yeah, so that'll need to get added into there. Um, and then, yeah, currently, I think there's like a send message function attached to like this connection object, and the connection object in the like completed or active state has that function. Um, and so, yeah, I think you'd need to add some API to that connection object to say like process this request for a did rotate. And because the connection object, uh, sorry, connection handler is probably the better word. I think we
Ah,
use
yeah,
that
yeah,
the other bit. Yeah, that handler holds the state of like what the ver key that they're messaging is. So yeah, that might need a facelift as well to instead of what ver key, it should be what did and what the ver key, what the did key you're sending messages to is, etc. Um, yeah, so I think you might need to have a look around there. But I think we should just stay in contact if
yeah.
you attempt this next, and spam me with questions, and I'll try answer.
Yeah, if you're willing to answer questions, that would be that would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I had a stab at issue credential V2 and present proof V2, the first thing I did was the messaging crate and put all that message structure into its own PR, and then started a separate PR for the implementation. Um, so yeah, I think have a go at the messaging stuff first, and then
Yep.
we'll keep talking.
Cool, cool, cool. It gives me some good directions there. Um, yeah. Uh, this has been a good discussion. It's been really good to meet and chat with you some. Is there like other things you want to talk about or things that because I'm totally down to keep talking about stuff. That's kind of what I had planned for today, at least so far.
Yeah, no, you as well. It's been great to meet and chat about Aries-vcx. It's always great when someone new comes on board. Yeah, to be honest, I was sort of hoping that Patrick was here so we could, talk more hard details about the leadership future and
Yep.
things like that. So we'll need to organize another time to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a relief to hear that there's interest in that from others.
Awesome. Well, sweet. I think it's
Yeah,
probably pretty good for today, and um, I'll reach out to you and Patrick to get that scheduled, and let me keeping an eye on the repo and trying to chug along on code and whatnot. So
yes, for sure. And I'm only a message away, so any questions you have, just send it through.
awesome. Well, thank you, George. I'll talk to you at least within 2 weeks, but probably sooner.
Yes, sounds good. Okay,
Awesome.
nice meeting you. Bye bye.
See you.